This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agnew.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agnew. We are sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your manual, automated performance and security testing resource. So today I'm lucky enough to be joined by Bobby Reed. He is our first executive producer founder. Bobby, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's going to be fun.
So Loaded Pixel, our tagline is a video production company. That's what we settled on before this. So we'll have to flesh that out a little bit. But let's get started with you. Where'd you grow up, and kind of did that have any impact on you being an entrepreneur later in your life?
That's a great start. I was born in Kansas. So most people in this part of the world don't know where that is. It's directly in the middle of the country. It's a flyover state. And then I moved to Denver when I was 7 years old. Grew up there, played football for a year, and it was Division II. I'm not that good. And then I transferred to Nebraska because I wanted to get into this film and video production world. And they had a program called Husker Vision, which they travel around with all the sports teams doing all the big screen events and gathering footage and content and editing. And it was, you use all the pro equipment while getting the experience and getting experience from other professionals. So I transferred to Nebraska to get into Husker Vision, got in there and had a great reel, and then got my first job in St. Louis, Missouri, which again, for those folks on the East Coast, it's another flyover state. It's right next to Kansas, all those things. So yeah, got my start in sports and live events and in post-production editing. And that was kind of the start. I just wanted to create pretty pictures, and that was kind of the start of it.
Did you do any of that as a kid? Did you like doing video stuff, or was it later?
Yeah, so it really changed when I was like a sophomore, junior in high school. So I had an English teacher, and I was not a great English student, to be fair. And he said, I'm starting this video production class. I want you to be in it as a junior, and it's only offered to seniors. So I was going to be the only underclassman in this senior level class. And so I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll be in this class. And there was probably a girl that I thought was cute in the class too or something. So I was like, yeah, of course. So I remember the first day it's starting, and he handed us these cameras and showed us, like, this was iMovie this was 2000. So he goes, this is editing software, and have at it and do whatever you want. And funny story there, that was one of the many times that class was one of the many times that I almost got kicked out of a school. And, at the time, Jackass was a very big, popular show on TV.
Yeah.
And so me and my friends were like, oh, let's recreate Jackass. So we went to the school and we did a bunch of Jackass things. I shot it all, edited it all. And I was going to air it on the in-house TV network. And the principal got involved and was like, you can't do this, and like wanted to suspend me and all these things. And my mom, everyone had to get involved, and thankfully I didn't get kicked out. But yeah, that was kind of the start of.
So you were the Jeff Tremaine, is that his name? The guy from who's the director guy who's the guy who's always behind the camera in Jackass?
Oh, I don't know the behind the camera guy.
He's like the main guy he's like the creator, not any of the actual talent, but there's like the one guy who like they always talk to. Anyway, he's the guy who's always like egging him on, and he's like, trying to get him to do the crazy stuff while he's like safely sitting behind the camera. That's just what I envisioned you doing in high school.
Probably.
So you had a bunch of cool little stops along the way. I saw in your background, just different kind of film, media jobs. What kind of led you to starting your own video production company?
So I always had a feeling like that's what I wanted to do, but I never really knew how to start it, or had the aha moment of like, this is when I'm going to do it. Until I moved to Philadelphia and I got in with the NBC Sports Network. I was a post-production editor there, having a blast, making as much. It wasn't a ton of money, but it was the most money I had ever made in my life. And so I was having a great time. I made a bunch of great friends. And then they moved their whole operation up to Connecticut, and they offered me a staff position up there for less money. And so I was kind of confused. And at the time, when I first moved to Philly, I guess I should back up. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a job. I knew no one. And so I started tutoring, and I only got one call to be a tutor in this world, in film and video production, Photoshop, Illustrator, all those things. And so this family I got pretty close with over the years. And so I went to the dad, who was an entrepreneur himself, business owner. And I told him this. I was like, hey, they want to move me to Connecticut and yada, yada. And he goes, he's like, why don't you just start your own company? And I said, I have no idea how to do that. He goes, I'll help you do it. It's not that hard, but you should do it, and do it now. This is a perfect opportunity. So I just kind of trusted him, and I did it, and went to one of my friends at NBC Sports, and actually two of my friends there. And we started Loaded Pixel in 2012. So NBC moves to Connecticut. We start Loaded Pixel. We kept NBC as a client, and we had, not a ton of work, but some work. And we all sort of took jobs other places to keep keep food on the table. And then, then slowly we built it up to where it is today. But that was the genesis. I had a buddy that I tutored his kids, and he just was like, you should do it. I'll help you. And that was the start.
So was NBC Sports your technically your first customer for Loaded Pixel?
Well, it would be, I guess technically it would be this guy, because he said, he goes, I need a video done for something, for YPO, this thing he was in. And he goes, can you do it, but give me a discount? And I said, how about this? How about you pay me you buy me a camera and a couple lights, and I'll do the rest for free. And he was like, deal. And so we got a camera and a couple lights and a microphone, and we did this job for him. And then right after that, NBC moves, and we keep them as a client doing stuff. So that was a while. I still have that camera too, which is weird.
You got to keep it forever. I mean, even if you just like mount it on the wall somewhere.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's for the audience will know what I'm about to say, for those who have listened before, which is friends and family plan, right? I mean, it's always almost the number one way to start a business is you find somebody. It's not this there's this misnomer that there's this magical grind that happens and like you can just like materialize clients. It's usually somebody in your network. It's usually somebody from somebody else, and you just have to ask, or they ask you, and you jump at it. And it sounds like it was kind of the same deal for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my whole life, I've never been staff anywhere. I've always been a freelancer. In other words, I've always had to hustle to get clients. It's in a different, world than, I'd say, an entrepreneur or a business, in the sense that, in live events or in editing, you're just looking, exactly who you're looking for. You're looking for production companies or, film companies that are going to use your service of editing or shooting or whatever it is, right? And so you can canvas. It's the same thing I did when I moved to Philly. I didn't know anyone, and so I just canvassed for months to try to find work. And it's just slow going at first, but then eventually somebody calls you back, they give you a job for a day or a week, and then you do a good job, they call you back, and then they introduce you to 4 other people, and then they call you, and then now your network grows. So it doesn't happen overnight. It's not as easy as like just applying to a job, giving your resume, and sitting down, and then they hire you, and now you're locked in for 10 years. It takes a lot more effort. So I was used to that risk. I was used to that grind, or that hustle, I guess I should say, and not being afraid that if I didn't work for a month, it was not the end of the world. And kind of being okay with that. And it's a scary thing for a lot of people, for most people, to have that mentality. But that's
I never. Yeah, I mean, it's a great point too, because we were talking a little bit about the documentary that I'm weirdly enough being part of right now. I didn't realize most of the film folks are freelancers. I didn't realize that like they're literally like sports people, where you're just like you're getting a contract here and there, like you're getting referred to places, like people see your work and they're like, oh yeah, like I don't think people. It's a very like common thing to see video all day, every day on everything we do, and just have no idea what goes on behind it. You don't know that there's this world of just plug and play people, and you're finding editors and producers and directors, and they all meld together to make these projects. When, as just a straight consumer, I had always kind of just assumed it was like this company and like this thing that was this nice little package that comes together everywhere, and they all go to this place and they all do these things. And I didn't realize there was a lot of this, like I said, plug and play kind of thing. So I do want to ask, what's the difference in your day-to-day now, X number of years, and I don't know how many years you can tell me, since you started Loaded Pixel and today? Like, what's your kind of What things have you shifted to business-wise, just your day-to-day, as opposed to when you started?
Well, I mean, it's when I first started, it was so again. First, there was three of us, and then the third person dropped out pretty quick because he wasn't in love with the risk. I'll just say that. So he dropped out pretty quick, and then so it was just me and my partner. But my partner is a writer director, so he doesn't. There's definitely a lot of talent in that, and there's a definite need for that. But when I first started, I was doing all the sales, all the client relations, account services, editing, producing. I was doing, all of that stuff. And so when, Wawa's are one of our big clients. When we first got Wawa, I was doing all of that. I was editing it all. I was getting the call from the client. I was sending it out for mix, doing a lot of the mixing myself. So all the color correcting, like I was doing all the graphics myself, like everything was me. And then, eventually as we got more clients, I have to then hire people or get a freelance staff or a freelance pool of people to then take on this load. So I haven't edited anything for Loaded Pixel probably in 2 years, which is great. I have a full-time production manager and, slash producer. So she takes on a lot of roles for producing. So most of my day-to-day now moves more towards managing those people, managing our number one client, and then finding new clients, and which is a whole host of different challenges than just editing, Wawa commercial or something. So, and that's the fun part now for me, is trying to figure that out, how to be more efficient with my time, with everyone else's time, while still being cognizant of all of the needs for the clients, for my employees' needs, my freelancers' needs. Just, running the business now is more of what I'm learning to do every day.
How did you get Wawa? If I'm allowed to hear that story, I'm just curious, like, how the hell did you land? I mean, and for people who are not in the East Coast or Philadelphia region, may not understand how cult like the following is for Wawa around here, that has slowly spread out along the East Coast. But how did you guys get that connection?
Yeah, that's a fun story. So my buddy who told me to start the company, he had a friend at Wawa, and he introduced me to her. She was I don't know exactly what her title was, but she was in marketing and kind of high up. And so it was more, so he introduced us, and the meeting that I set was a coffee, like, hey, I'll come to Wawa for a coffee to meet you. I've never met this woman before. And to learn more about their needs, because traditionally a company of that size, of Wawa size, will hire, an ad agency to then run all the production through that. So then I would be basically working for the ad agency, not directly with Wawa. So so I'm walking into this meeting going, hey, I'm just going to learn more about how it all works with them, what their needs are. Maybe I can slide in somewhere or learn enough to then go to an ad agency and be like, hey, I'm working, blah, blah, blah. So I walk in, I meet this woman for 15 minutes, and she goes, well, let's go to this conference room. I walk in, she brings in everyone from the marketing department and everyone from the PR department and everyone from some other department. I don't even know, the foundation, whoever uses video. She brought everyone in. There was maybe 20 people in this room. And she's like, hey, everybody, here's Bobby Reed, and he does video production. Wow. Bobby, take it away. And I go, I have nothing. I felt like I was totally caught with my pants down, like with the worst opportunity. I said, well, if you have internet in here, we could pull up my website. And luckily at that point I had worked a Super Bowl and Olympics and some other bigger events on the live event side. And so I was able just to basically BS my way through this meeting. And the whole time, I'm sweating the whole time. I walked out of that meeting and I called my buddy and I said, you totally bagged me. Like, she raked me over the coals she brought me in front of everybody. I literally had nothing. And so he goes, you'll be fine. Like, it was a good experience or whatever he said, Right. And then a month later I got a call and they said, hey, can you just put some new music on this spot for us? And I was like, yeah, sure. It took me 10 minutes and they just started calling me to do little things like that here and there. And they said, oh, can you also do shoots? And I said, yeah, sure. So they gave me this little shoot to do. And then they said, oh, can you do this bigger thing? And I said, yeah, sure. And then they said, oh, can you do all of our production now? And I said, yeah, sure. So just
how long was that from that meeting until you guys kind of took it all over?
It was a few years. So the first meeting was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And then really the pandemic is what took off for us, because they weren't allowed to, the ad agencies weren't allowed to travel anywhere. They, with all the unions and stuff that are involved in video production, it was very difficult to get anything shot and done. And so Wawa called me and they said, hey, we need to shoot stuff. And I said, can you do it? And I said, yeah, sure. So I remember our first shoot was in April of 2020. So this is still lockdown. We can only have 10 people. So a typical Wawa shoot broadcast production, we'll have 40, 50 people on set, not including the client, that are running around doing different things. Those are big sets. And then all of a sudden they said, you got to do it with 10 people total. And we were like, okay. But I'm telling you, some of the best phone calls I made. I called the guy, one of the guys who shoots all of our stuff, and I said, do you want to work? And he started crying. He said, yes, I'll do whatever it takes. Because at that point, nobody knew, especially in this business, when they were going to work again.
Right.
Because of all these different stipulations with COVID and people working. So we did what we could. We all wore masks. There was only 10 of us, and we shot a ton of stuff. And then when we started to turn that stuff around and do it quick, and they started to see how fast and well we could do things, and honestly, it was cost effective for them to do it. They were like, here, why don't you just start doing all of it for us? So
is it everything now? Like, you are there, like the stuff at the pump, like all the, all those little videos you see when you're at the little kiosks, like all the stuff in there?
It's slowly becoming, I guess in that respect, we probably do 80%. Like, we're starting to do more of their social. We're starting to do, some of that stuff at the pump is already things that we do. The cat screen stuff.
The stuff that everybody loves, by the way. Everybody loves the super loud videos that autoplay as soon as you turn the... everybody loves those.
What's funny about that is we've had to do so much research on decibel levels at the pump because of exactly what you're talking about. And every pump is different. There's all this technical jargon I can get into, but we had to go around with different microphone recorders and sound check or sound level recorders to different Wawas and record how loud it was. And then as we produce this stuff for the pump, we have a set limit, a decibel level, if you will, of how high we go based on all of these meter readings.
That's super cool. I like that a lot.
Bonkers.
I actually love that. And I do have a related question that I've always wondered. Is there some sort of standard for TV commercial volume that you have to be at?
Yes, 100% there is. Yeah. I guess you could always be under, but yeah, you keep it at a certain level for broadcast standards, and you can't go over that. Now, they do pump up the volume on that's after I deliver it. So the master control will throw it up. So that's why commercials tend to be louder. Now they've controlled that over the years, so it's not as drastic as
jarring. The late night infomercials that are like screaming at you. Right. Yeah, that's an interesting point. If you had to start your production company over again today with everything you've learned, what would be step one?
Step one, you did ask me this, and I meant to think about this longer.
I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad we're doing it live right now together. That's much better for me. I like that better. You should know that. This is much better content than you just rambling off some pre-canned answer.
I know. I guess if I would do it again, I wouldn't wait to do certain things. I would just go for it and not be as afraid or as cautious, or I would dive in harder to things. And some of it was just learning, I think. Some of it was not knowing what to dive into, maybe. But I know that how I've mentally changed over the last at least 5, 6, 7 years when the business has taken off. And the one piece of advice that I got from a different business mentor was there's never a better time than right now. So if you're talking about it, then stop talking about it and go do it. If you're thinking about it, you can think about it, but think about it in terms of how to make a plan. You're going to make a plan to go do it that day or tomorrow or the next, that week, as soon as you can do it. And that's one thing that's helped, I think, get us to where we're going. Again, when you're going super fast, you're going to make some mistakes. And that's the hard part. And I made some mistakes with Wawa. I made mistakes with not every client, but you make mistakes. You just have to find your best way to understand what they are and then make sure they don't happen again. And then explain that to the client. Hey, look, we made a mistake, and own up to it. Because I found that if at least you own up to it ahead of time, they're more willing to work with you and be understanding of whatever it is. Unless they find it, right? And if they find it, then that's when you get
that. Yeah, that is. And even then, I think that's a great point. And something I still am shocked that I see in business owners today is there's literally nothing to gain by pushing blame off. Like there's not like you don't look better. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't make them go, oh well, then okay, yeah, it's our even if it's their fault. Like take ownership and just fix the problem. And 99.99% of the time, it'll be fine. It's just the backpedaling and the oh my god, like I don't know how that happened. Like if you really just take it and you own it, I've had a much better experience as a business owner. Just kind of like you said, just going for it, just tackling it and be like, yeah, that was totally our fault. Like, we'll make sure that doesn't happen again. And you work through it. So I think that's a great piece of advice. All right. One thing we'll end on, if there's aspiring video production company owners out there, which may be a limited audience, maybe not. And, there's guys out there who do film today. What would you kind of tell them? What would you tell your younger self? And maybe some of it is not to wait, and we can, that can maybe be one of the things. But what would you tell them? What would you tell your younger self if you were going to kind of look back and say, hey, don't wait, go do it. Here's what you need to go do.
Yeah. There's a couple things there. One thing that I said there's a few things. One short one is at Loaded Pixel, the big joke is always be the director. Because if you can be the director, you have you get all the money and glory and none of the pain and suffering of like dealing with the client or like
Right.
all the blame for, from all the, the producing side is sometimes thankless and long. But as the directors always say, that's why the producers take the Oscar for best pictures because they have to deal with all that's one thing. Yeah, I will also say if I find a lot of young filmmakers and creatives really get bogged owning the art in a creative end game or in piece. In other words, they feel like whatever they're putting out is the best it can be for this thing, and the client doesn't know any better. The producer, nobody knows any better. They're the ones, whatever they're putting out is the best. And what's been beneficial, I think, for me explaining this to other editors is you get one shot. So if whatever you're working on, you get one shot to wow the client, to say no changes. It can't be any more perfect than this. We're going to put this out as is. Amazing job. After that, you don't own it. It's their piece. They're paying for it. If they want to put their stamp on it or make changes or whatever, you have to just do it and not be brokenhearted that somebody ruined your masterpiece or whatever, right? There'll be a place and time for your masterpiece, and that place and time is not now, and it's not here. So, but you get one shot, and I've seen it happen. It's not it's not unattainable to just edit something and you put it in front of the client, and they're like, "This is perfect, thank you." It can happen, but it doesn't happen often. So, don't hang on to it as long as you think. So, that's what I would say, because then you can get upset. You can let a lot of emotions cloud your judgment, especially if you will be client facing, if you're going to run a business. So you can't take it to heart. And a lot of creatives, a lot of people in this field they're emotional people just by nature, because that's what we are. And that's what makes great art are the emotion of it. But sometimes you got to cut that off. So that's what I would say to a younger, that's one of the things I would say, I guess.
I like that. Yeah, no, those are great answers. All right. How do they find you, Bobby? How do they find Loaded Pixel if they're looking to get in touch and get some high quality video work done?
Yeah. This is Loaded Pixel. I think we were going to talk about this. We didn't get into it, but Loaded Pixel was not the first name.
Yes. Tell me about that story before we go. I do want to know. Tell me the genesis of the name.
It is quick. We wanted, I can't remember exactly what we wanted, like Pixel Harvest or something like that, but pixelharvest.com was taken. And so we wanted Pixel, is kind of what you were mentioning earlier, is Pixel's kind of a cool, fun thing. And we found that loadedpixel.com, the URL was not taken. So we were like, oh, great. But this, again, goes back to me being cautious. And we had no money. So I was like, let's submit the paperwork for the LLC. Once we get it back and we have the name for sure, then we'll buy the URL. Well, in the time when we got the name through the state and we got the paperwork back that said we officially had it, somebody had bought some guy that, some squatter bought loadedpixel.com and won't sell it back to us for less than like an astronomical price now. So we had to then, by that point, we had to find another URL. So we went with something super long. Loadedpixelcreative.com was our URL. So it's you could probably find us. I think we have loadedpixel.tv. So if you send an email or if you went to loadedpixel.tv, you could find us. But yeah, so loadedpixelcreative.com is the URL. You can find us there.
And
or
what about
Loaded
you?
Pixel.
LinkedIn kind of guy? Are you
Oh, yeah,
email
sure.
focused? What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, best way to reach me is Bobby at Loaded Pixel Creative or info at Loaded Pixel Creative. You can find me on LinkedIn, Bobby Reed. It's hopefully, I mean, it's a fairly common name, but hopefully
Yeah, I
if you
think you
typed
came
in
up
Bobby
pretty
Reed,
quickly when I searched you, so you should be good.
I was getting there.
Yeah,
We're okay.
you're right. You're skyrocketing to the top of LinkedIn results. Well, Bobby, it was
That's it.
great meeting you. I love your story, man. I hope some aspiring filmmaker slash production slash anything film related. There's some good stuff in here for people who want to kind of take that next step and be a business owner and kind of chase that dream of continuing on with film. So thank you for being on, brother. It was great meeting you, and have a great weekend. All right.
You too, man. Yeah, thanks, Jay. It's
Thanks,
fun.
Bobby. See ya.